So, I'm not really fond of politics. Some of my friends get upset with me for how much I ignore politics and how much I don't really care about politicians and presidents and like voting and stuff like that. My primary concern is people, their relationships, honor, virtue, integrity, and story creation. I love making stories. I love creating stuff. It's just a wonderful thing to me. And I love helping people. And being able to make stories to help people, that's what I love. I like that kind of stuff. I'm just not really into politics, okay? However, it is pretty clear that men's issues are a little bit of a partisan issue. And it really shouldn't be, but it is. And it is, as a just brief explanation, because feminism is just Marxist ideas applied to gender. Now, technically speaking, feminism is a crazy, illogical framework of multiple different ideals because classism does not apply to gender. There are multiple different classes and ways to move in between those different classes, and multiple reasons why each class would interact with each other differently. Men and women, on the other hand, are biological distinctions. And from those biological distinctions, certain, I guess you could say, advantages and disadvantages are like granted to them. Obviously, in the framework of our modern society, there are multiple different things that work just based on how we're socialized as people, also based on the environment in which we're socialized, based on our sex that we have and all that jazz. It is really complex, but it's also really simple. Complex so far as we're all socialized differently, but simple as in there's only really two ways of which you can be. Now, of course, Marxist ideals, and even from that extension, you have trans ideals or the idea trans identities and multiple different identities, non-binary, all that, all get sprinkled in. But the long and short of it is, when it comes to biology, when it comes to just factual, just reproduction, all that stuff is irrelevant. You can be non-binary as much as you want, but if you have a uterus and you have egg cells, you can be impregnated. So you can make the silly statement that I am a non-binary pregnant person, but when it comes to the function of what you're doing, you're a female. That's just how the English language works. That's not being insensitive. That's just reality. That's how we use language to understand the world. It got to this point where now I have to explain how the English language works because so many ideals are all topsy-turvy. But again, how did it get this muddied mess of mush and gush? Well, again, it's because feminists tried to take Marxist ideals and they tried to apply it to genders, or more specifically, to sexes. Being a male means that you are in a higher, more powerful class. Being a female means you're in a lower class. But this binary doesn't really work because males can be lower class and be under high class females. So that's where the idea of intersectionality comes into, and saying that your race and your social class and your social and all this stuff really matters. And it becomes this really big mess of a whole bunch of different ideals that are oftentimes deconstructed but are never reconstructed. So there's a lot of criticism. There's a lot of explaining how something's wrong, how something's bad from leftist politics. Not very many solutions. And as such, we get to this part of the video, where men's issues and women's issues are a partisan issue between left and between right. People on the right want to help men and women out, by that matter, because they care about familial structures. They care about maintaining a social sphere. At least they're supposed to. While people on the left are concerned with deconstructing and progression. They want to keep moving forward in society without any real clear vision as to what that technically even really actually means, but they want to keep doing it. And while they do that, they want to deconstruct all these different ideals of traditionalism, of so-called patriarchy, manhood, masculinity, and femininity, but they never want to actually give us an ideal of what you should be. So, this is where we get into this big imbalance in the most simplistic, non-complex way ever. I'm sure there's a lot more nuance to this. Where right people have a strong ideal of what it means to be a masculine and what it means to be feminine. The left has a deconstructed ideal, and then they just kind of says, well, figure it out. And yeah. That's what leads us to this video by, well, his main channel is BigJoel, but his other channel is Little Joel, where he's talking about the fact that the left doesn't really offer many solutions that the right in this partisan issue does. Now, if you want my honest opinion, the only dichotomy that's reasonable to discuss is good versus evil, if you're just talking to me. However, I think one thing that is objectively clear is that right-leaning politics do have a much stronger ideal, whether it's wrong or right, of what men should be. Leftist politics have a lot of deconstructing of what men should be, not a lot of what they should be. There's lots of problems with being a man and manhood, but not any solution. Right says, well, here's how you be a man. And whether you agree or disagree, the right says, here's how to be a man. BigJoel thinks that the right still probably isn't doing a good job of that for some odd reason. I know he feels that way because I've seen some of his videos and have considered responding to them. I'm not a right-leaning person. I'm not a left-leaning person. As I said, I'm a political mercenary. If it makes sense, I go with it. If it's reasonable, I go with it. If it's true, I go with it. I don't really give a damn if something sounds like a feminist idea or something sounds like a right-leaning idea. If it makes sense, it makes sense. That's how I view the world. My primary concern, once again, is righteousness versus vice. Or maybe it's more virtue versus vice. Righteousness versus immorality. That's my primary concern. And I'm not saying you guys have to be like me. If you want to keep being into politics and that's your hobby, that's your prerogative. That's how I feel. So I'm never going to get caught into a right-leaning niche or a left-leaning niche. My niche is you do what's right because it's the right thing to do. It's that simple, okay? I'm an anime character. Sorry about that. Why do you think I do all the fan art, okay? Well, I don't do it. My friend does it. So now we're getting to Joel. Sorry for this long preamble. But this is Joel's reaction to a tweet that is actually criticizing the left for not doing a lot to help young men, which is just objectively true. I mean, I've spent like the last 10 years making multiple videos against left-leaning people that all they do is deconstruct manhood and say that men are bad people. So I think it's fair to say when I say it is, yeah, the left doesn't do much for men. Go ahead and take us away, brother.
So there's this tweet by this guy named Sid that goes as follows. The reason young men flock to alt-right MRA movements is because the left gives brain-dead advice to young men. We need to be more compassionate to them for our own sake.
And he's right on multiple different levels of interpretation. For our own sake could be for the sake of our country and not creating a whole bunch of, as they like to call, fascist men that want to like take over stuff and just do bad things and hurt people. Or finally, you could interpret it as for our own sake because those bloody incels might kill us. Don't worry, incels. I know you guys are more likely to kill yourselves than other people, but you know, that's how they feel. Anyhow, go ahead and continue.
So this tweet is going wild on my Twitter right now, personally. Like, a lot of people hate it. Some people really, really like it. Bosch is into it, whatever. Personally, the tweet doesn't really make me mad at all because I think the outcome it describes is good.
Joel, why do you think these leftists had such a problem? Why they took such umbrage with the idea that they should be kinder to men? It might have something to do with the fact that for years they were trained to believe that men were their greatest adversaries, and that men hate them, and that men benefit in society where they don't, and that men are just cruel and just don't care. And men are so bad that men hurt other men. You think that maybe it might have something to do with the fact that when you train people to believe that men in their nature are evil, that they might not be so privy to having compassion and caring for them. After all, these people haven't heard of Christianity, apparently. I mean, also, when you deconstruct Christianity, a religion whose primary theme is forgiveness, being kind to others, and helping them, and protecting them, it makes sense that they would be, once again, hilariously unforgiving to such evil, whereas Christianity would seek to redeem it. But you're not going to say any of that because you're an idiot, so go ahead.
It's good to be compassionate to men, and if the left can do a better job of that, then that's great. That said, I have some problems with this tweet, like a weird amount of problems with this tweet.
Of course you do, because God bloody forbid we treat men with compassion. Can't have that. They're evil. They're the villains of this tale. Why should we? You know, you guys just didn't watch Naruto, did you? Huh. Huh. No Naruto. I can tell. None at all. Or Dragon Ball Z. Shoot. Even Goku didn't kill Vegeta. Anyway, continue.
The first is, I'm not sure exactly what advice the left is giving to young men that is brain dead. Like, what are people saying? What's going on?
I mean, off the top of my head, some of the silliest advice that I keep seeing left-wingers say is, take a shower, cut your hair, and don't be creepy. Get some friends. Get a hobby.
It's not super helpful to the conversation, I think, to present the left as a group of people presenting young men terrible advice without getting into the nature of that advice, what's actually going on. I know a bunch of leftists, and they tend to say just normal shit all day, every day. So I'm not sure what the actual thing is here.
The nature of the advice usually presupposes that the man has done something wrong and that as a man he has to fix it. To be fair, the nature of almost all advice is as such, but the left is so surface level and minute in giving young men practical applications that they don't really know what to do. I mean, there's always a lot of deconstruction of masculinity and being toxic. You don't need to prove yourself. You don't need to compete in competitions and stuff like that. You don't need to be big and strong. But the advice doesn't really go so far as to well, how am I supposed to actually be a man? Sometimes the left's brain dead advice is no advice. I have seen literally young men ask feminists, ask them directly, what am I supposed to do? And they don't tell them anything. So sometimes it's a lack thereof advice. Sometimes their advice is so generic in general that, well, it's a nothing burger. It just doesn't apply because it doesn't work, or they've already tried it and it didn't help them get what they wanted. And what young men want more than anything else, come here, let me tell you something. What young men want, come here, get close. What young men want more than anything else is to be with a woman that loves them. And the left has created a generation of women that hate them. You might be able to see now why there might be a little bit of friction there now. Yes?
Problem number two, maybe this is the obvious one. This tweet here doesn't really account for other extremely important factors at play here, right? For example, what of patriarchy?
Like male privilege. Ah, yes, all those poor men that are short and ugly are incredibly privileged because people don't talk to them. People leave them alone. Being socially isolated is such a privilege now, isn't it?
You know, we've lived in a very, very sexist society for a very long time.
No, we didn't, Joel. We didn't grow up in a sexist society. In fact, we grew up in a rather egalitarian society. Quite ironically, most of the sexism that occurs is actually towards young men. People get upset about the fact that men are an ever-present danger to women. And then when you look statistically, you find a couple of different things. Now, again, I'm not fond of statistics, so take this with a grain of salt. But you'll find that men get attacked more than women, yet women are more afraid of men. The reason why women are more afraid of men is because men are bigger and stronger than they are. Now, that's really logical on the surface until you factor in, mentally, men don't want to hurt women. The vast majority of human beings actually don't want to hurt other human beings. In fact, here's the interesting thing. You have to train human beings to hurt other human beings. And even then, sometimes they still don't want to hurt other people. So despite the fact that overwhelmingly, women actually aren't in ever-present danger to men, they feel like they are. Quite ironically, men are actually, statistically, more in danger than women are. And yet, despite the fact that that's the case, men are told that it's still their problem because other men are performing it. So even though you are more likely to be a victim as a man, it's still your responsibility as a man because another man will hurt you. But that's not sexist. Or somehow that's sexist against women, even though women are actually in less danger than men are. Now, here's where the real irony comes in. Women are in more danger of being hurt by the men that they pick. How about that? So, women have this ever-present fear of men, but they select the men more often than not that's going to kill them. How does that work? Well, it might work when you start factoring in that women and men aren't hive minds and that different people feel differently about the world, and you can't just categorize people in overwhelming, sweeping generalizations. Unfortunately, the world that we live in loves to do that to men. It doesn't really do that for women. I mean, everyone's told that we do that to women, but what we actually are doing it to is to men. I'm not here to say that men are victims of everything, but what I am saying is that when it comes to the sexism in the world, it is actually still more towards men than it is towards women. But,
And so I think it makes sense that people are still attracted to the patriarchy as an idea.
It might have a little bit more to do with the fact that people are flocking to the idea of the patriarchy because it is a constructed idea, not a deconstruction of whatever gobbledygook mess that you guys have now. Here's the thing that's interesting about the left's advice. You should be fine with women being in their career paths. Fair enough. Problem is, when women out-earn men, they grow resentful, disrespectful of those men, or will not engage with those men that make less money than them at all. So women still adhere to the fact that men have to be higher earners than them, while also having the jobs that will make them high earners. Which you would think would be sexist against men, but apparently it's not, because I guess in the past that we didn't live in, other men did something. So because other men in the past we did something, we have to suffer now by not being worthy of being loved by women. And that somehow makes sense to leftists. I don't know why it makes sense, but it does.
Are young men flocking to conservative movements because of some deficiency in leftist advice? Or does it come down more to the fact that they were born in conservative households, told to believe conservative things growing up?
Sure, that might have a little bit of something to do with it. The only problem is there's plenty of leftists that were also born into conservative households that now lean more towards leftist ideals. Hunter Avallone is the first one that comes to mind. I think even Vaush might have said that. I think even Destiny can say that. So Joel, stop with your dumb, stupid take here, fam. Just because you were born in a household doesn't mean that when you get into adulthood, you're going to still maintain those same ideals. It's not why they flock to it. They flock to it because it's more socially cohesive and it makes more sense. It's also the only framework that isn't constantly telling them that they're an evil, vile person for the mere fact that they exist. At least in Christianity, you can ask for forgiveness and be renewed and then loved and respected and cherished by the Lord. With the feminist religion, you're just an awful person from start to finish and you just have to do your part to be better. But you can never be better because you're always still going to be a man. Who the flip wants to adhere to an ideology like that? Self-hating people. That's the answer to the question. Continue.
Are Andrew Tate's major fans, and who are their parents?
How in heaven's name is anyone supposed to bloody know that?
Also, what of material factors, right? The cost of living going up and COVID-19 and political disarray.
What the irony of all that is, with the cost of living going up, you would think that two people that have a natural predilection of being together, being attracted to each other, would say, hey, I have resources, you also have resources, let's be together. And then they'll be like, oh wait, wow, imagine if we work together, we can make life easier for each other. Imagine that. Only problem is, one half of that equation says, but you don't make more money than me, so why would I even enter this partnership? And the other half's like, but wait a minute, if we combine our incomes and we make a plan, we can make, that whole logic thing, but you make less money than me, so why would I engage? Well, I'm trying to explain why you would engage because it would be mutually beneficial to the both of us. No, but I would be paying more. Well, yes, but I'm also bigger and stronger, and I also have life experience you don't, and also any money that I have will still always be an asset to you. Yeah, but you're also like short, so you make less money than me. You're also not as tall as I want you to be. You're also not as handsome as I want you to be. So why would I engage in this partnership that would be mutually beneficial to both of us? Because like I just said, because any money that I have will always be a benefit to you. And also, like, I'm also still like a person. Like, I still have thoughts and ideas, and I can also like clean and cook too sometimes, and we can trade off, and like we can like make a plan. No. That's what's going on. So that's the state of affairs. And the left tells men, okay, well then do better. And men are like, okay, but like how though? Well then we'll cut your hair. How will cutting my hair make me taller?
I think this tweet kind of comes with the implication that giving people advice, like self-help advice, is this really important, impactful thing. When I just disagree. I don't really think that self-help online advice is all that helpful to people because I think you already know all the advice that anybody on the internet could possibly tell you.
If that's the case, why does anyone listen to anyone say anything if they already have all of the knowledge? I guess the obvious answer is entertainment, but then there's the other obvious answer, and that is that's a fucking stupid thing to say, Joel.
If I was asked, BigJoel, what advice do you give to young men? This is what I'd say. Young men, do things that are good, in your opinion.
Hey, Joel, we're talking about how the left gives brain-dead advice to men. I think you just added one to the list.
Do things that you think are good. I don't imagine that I have a better answer for what those things are than you do. You know yourself, but of course you know what those things are. Maybe you think exercising is good. Maybe you think you should pick up a skill. Maybe you think you should leave the house more. What you gotta do really is do those things.
The lack of self-awareness is painful. It's so painful that I don't have the words to articulate it. All I can do is just point out that this video that Joel made is responding to the fact that the left gives brain-dead advice. And then later he proceeds to give out said brain-dead advice.
I think that is really what interests me about this tweet. Why I wanted to talk about it tonight. It can be really, really easy to think that the problem with society, the problem with people, is that the right words are not being said to them, and that if we simply edited those words in the right way and came out with the right guy who said the right things, then everything would be okay. It's convenient and fun to believe that because words are cheap as fuck. Anybody can say any of them. And if we did crack that particular nut, if we did come out with the right words, great, problem solved. No more issues. I don't have any kind of problem with treating men compassionately. I hope that I do treat the men in my audience compassionately, whatever that means. But it's just not enough.
Now, I know that this video is long, and if you watched it, I have to say thank you. I greatly appreciate it, okay? But I wanted to let that last part play out so you guys get a great understanding of what I was talking about when I say that there's always deconstruction, but there's never reconstruction. As you heard Joel lament at the end of the video, is that it's not enough to just be compassionate. We've deconstructed that being compassionate isn't enough. He deconstructed all of the problems with that tweet, but what he didn't do was give us anything actionable. He didn't reconstruct and give us a better idea of advice we can grant to people. From his own point of view, everyone already knows everything that they're supposed to do, but they don't do it. So the answer is we can't do anything. It's just this perpetual battle of just left versus right till the end of time and space. It would appear that that's kind of what they want. And like I said, I can't be bothered with that. If there's going to be perpetual battle to the end of time and space, I would prefer it not be political, but it'd be spiritual, and it'd be moral, and it'd be good versus evil. That's just me. Again, I'm not making this video because I love the right, or I'm a right-leaning person, or whatever. I don't give a damn. What I care about is your life being better. I want your life to be better. I want your wife's life to be better. I want your husband's life to be better. I want your children's life to be better. I want your life to be better. Okay? But the reason why I wanted to make this video is to explain why the left is nonsensical when it comes to men's issues. Again, you cannot have deconstruction after deconstruction and play the tune that men are awful, terrible people, and then be shocked, wondered, or surprised when men are angry or when men are self-loathing. Because what you have in the end of it all are self-loathing men that don't take care of themselves, are squishy, who are weak, who are overcompensating, who are scroungy, and sometimes are waiting to use subterfuge to get what they want. Men who are the very creepy people you say you hate, bloody feminists, versus angry men who are resentful, who are sometimes cruel, who are angry because of all of the stuff you told them was wrong about them, but never told them any of the things that was good about them. That's the problem that we have here. These young men need help. And as much as they need help, they need to understand why being a man is an important and great thing. You can't just keep deconstructing masculinity and deconstructing the patriarchy and then just hope that these guys just intuit something nice. They need guidance. They need fathers. They need to know that men are valuable and men are worthy of being loved. These men do need compassion. So in the end, I do agree with Joel. It's not enough to just be compassionate. The problem is the left, they don't even have that, let alone the enough of being more. That's why people lean towards the right, or rather to be more correct. That's why a lot of these men lean to the alt-right, or the right, or traditionalism, or patriarchy, because it's something. It may not be the best thing, but something is better than nothing. And I'm sure you dickheads have heard that idiom before. So that being said, I just hope you guys got something out of today's video. I doubt it. But if you did, go and click the like button. Shoot, go and click that subscribe button. Comment in the comment box below. And as always, you guys have yourselves a great day. I'll see you cool cats soon. Adios.